Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Guys, we're going to get a little lesson in history on today. And this is going to take some time, but I'm going to go through it because at the end of me reading this letter, which is the Willie Lynch Letter and the making of the slave, I am going to speak on what I see happening in the black community and also what I see happening with some of the YouTubers, in specific the black YouTubers, as it relates to the Kanika Jenkins case. Now, some of you guys may not be comfortable with my commentary on this. Some of you guys may disagree with me on this, and that's fine. But I'm speaking from wisdom, I am speaking from knowledge, and I am speaking from a place where I understand fully what's happening through experience within the J4K community and also with the black community. Now, before I even get into reading this letter, I want to say to all of you guys, the black community in specific, okay? One thing that I want you guys to understand, because we often cry out for respect. We want others to look at us and we want them to respect us. But when they look at us, they don't see us as being respectful toward one another. So it's almost impossible for them to have that level of respect for us when we see that we do not respect our own selves, okay? From the black men disrespecting the black woman, from, it's a trickle down effect. All of the disrespect within the black community that nobody else is doing to us but us. All of the violence, all of the hurt, all of the pain, the crime in our communities, all of those things. We can no longer put this on anybody else, because in this day and age, we claim to be a woke people. We walk around calling ourselves kings and queens, not endowing exactly what a king and a queen means, what it represents, what it entails, what is the characteristics of being a king and a queen. We call ourselves that, but we don't fit the bill to even be using that terminology, because the black community is broken down in a way right now that it's nobody's fault but our own. Okay? There is no more excuses. This is not the era of Miss Jane Pittman. This is not the era of Harriet Tubman. This is not the era of Martin Luther King. This is not the era of Nat Turner and all of those wonderful people who paved the way for us to be in the position that we are in now, which is being free. And not only being free physically, but being free mentally. And this is where the letter I'm going to read to you comes in at. Because even though we are free physically, we are not free mentally, because it was embedded in us a long time ago to be who we are. And I'm just going to call a thing, and that is crabs in a barrel. That is a people who claim unity. but a people, that same people that will tear one another down, that same people who do not want to see the next one come up in this world. That backbiting, that backsliding, that knife diving in your chest and in your back, black people. We're going to face the reality of who we are and the issues that we have in society. We can no longer just put it on because we're black. We have to take ownership in our part of the things that go wrong within our society, because it all boils down to the choices that we're making. And with that being said, I am going to read to you guys the Willie Lynch Letter and the Making of a Slave. The infamous Willie Lynch Letter gives both African and Caucasian students and teachers some insight concerning the brutal and inhumane psychology behind the African slave trade. The materialistic viewpoint of Southern plantation owners that slavery was a business and the victims of chattel slavery were merely pawns in an economic game of debauchery, crossbreeding, interracial rape, and mental conditioning of a Negroid race. They considered subhuman. The equal important in the international nature of the European economic, political, and cultural climate that influenced the slave trade. Within the time scale of African history, it was relatively a short period, a mere 1.5 centuries, from the most extensive phase of the Atlantic slave trade to the advent of European administration and dominance. Long before the slave coast had been chartered by the Portuguese and the people of the area west of Benin, between the Volta River and Lagos, European traders traced a cultural history which linked them with the earliest Yoruba settlements to the north and eastern borders of Africa. There were considerable debates during the colonial periods in the United States and the late 1700s. The attention of the national government was mainly directed to slavery and the rising numbers of slaves traded and imported into the South. The first debate was held in Congress in 1789, and the question of whether taxes should be paid on imported slaves. During the debate, the Slavery Duty Bill, which was introduced by Dr. Clymer's committee, Parker of Virginia, moved that on May 13, 1789, a tax of $10 per capita be laid on slaves imported. I hope you guys are listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth. He plainly stated that the taxes was designed to check the trade, and that he was sorry that the Constitution prevented Congress from prohibiting the importation altogether. The proposal was eventually unwelcome and caused extended debate. Smith of the South Carolina wanted to postpone the matter so big that the serious consequences to the state he represented. Roger Sherman of Connecticut could not reconcile himself to insert of human beings as an article of duty among goods, wares, and merchandise. My God in Zion. As I read this, and I haven't even got to the meat of the story yet, it brings back to mind all of the negativity, all of the self-hatred that the black community endows. Why do we still endow that? Why is it still a part of us when we claim to be a woke people? Answer that question. We are the ones with guns killing one another. I haven't seen the type of violence that's going on now within the black community. I haven't seen it since the crack era. You guys remember the crack era. We know the history about the crack era. It was the government's plan to take out a whole bunch of black people using this watered down cocaine. It was the government's plan to do it. But the black people had a choice, and if they would participate in it. And what did the black people do? Because they saw it as a come up to get out of poverty. They killed off damn near a whole generation of people. They sold crack. Black men put crack in the hands of young black boys and made them go out into the street to sell that crack. They didn't care that that black child was a part of their community. They didn't care that instead of being a positive role model, they put these kids out on the street to commit suicide amongst themselves and to commit homicide amongst their people. It's all about the choices we make in life. That crack era, we saw mothers, decent women, church-going women, business women, the everyday mother turn into what was known as a crackhead who would do anything just for a hit. She would go as far as kneeling down in the bushes, and I'm gonna keep it real with y'all, and sucking a man's dick just for a $5 hit of crack, leaving her children hungry in the house, completely out of her mind. And guess what? She didn't get it from the white man. She got the dope from the black man. Where is the responsibility? Where is owning the responsibility in the things that go wrong in our community when we know we had a hand in it, and when we know we have a hand in it today? Oh, I'm going to keep it real with you guys today. Because what I'm seeing in this community, even in the YouTube streets, is a disgrace. We haven't learned anything. We claim to be a woke people. We're not woke at all. We still sleeping. And we sleep, we're almost comatose. We're talking about black power. Power to the people. Stay woke. That's just words coming out of our mouths because our communities don't reflect the philosophy that we claim to live by. Who's teaching it to our young black men? Who's teaching it to our young black girls? It's a good word, spoken word. But faith doesn't mean nothing if you don't have work behind it. I'm speaking to you woke people because a lot of you get on YouTube and you claim to be woke and you speak a lot. But where is your work behind what you're saying? Each one teach one. What are we each one teaching? What are we teaching our children? Our children are dying, and they're dying by the hands of themselves. In all of my days of living, when I was a young girl, I've never seen. I thank God my mama and my family, they protect, and that goes for my entire family. We were protected against racism. We were protected against self-hatred. Nobody taught us how to hate ourselves. I grew up in a family that we loved everybody. We showed love to everybody. We didn't see flaws in everybody. We didn't see flaws in nobody. So it's when people get to calling out flaws in other people, that's hard for me to understand. Because we didn't we loved people for real back then when I was coming up. A close-knit family in a close-knit community. Didn't nobody go around talking about the next door neighbor because her child didn't have a pair of sneakers. Somebody in that community went buy that child a pair of sneakers. If Miss So-and-so got a cup of sugar from my mama's house, my mama made sure it was her instinct and her love for her neighbor to make sure that Miss So-and-so didn't only leave with a cup of sugar, but she left with a bag of rice. And she left with a pack of meat to feed her family. Because if she was coming for some sugar, my mama knew other things were short in that house as well. It was no backbiting and no talking bad about who don't have this and who don't have that. It was no jealousy going on back then when I was coming up in the communities that I grew up in. It was none of that. So what I'm seeing right now in my middle age is foreign to me. This behavior is foreign to me. In the community that I grew up in, when I was coming up, when I was a teenager, I didn't see my friends dying because they were getting shot and killed down, run down in the street by another friend. I didn't see that coming up. So what have we taught our children? Because it seems like we're going backwards in reverse now. Nobody can tell them anything. Not only can nobody tell them anything, nobody can tell their parents anything about them for fear of some type of retaliation, whether verbal or physical. Let's be real here. No, this is the conversation that really needs to be had. The self-hatred within the black community. No longer can we blame anybody for the things that's going on in this day and age within our community. Where are the black men? Where are they? What are they teaching the young black men coming up behind them? I'll tell you what they teach them. Nothing good. Nothing good. I'm not even going to finish this Willie Lynch letter because I want you to read it for yourself. And all you have to do is Google search the making of a slave. And like I said, this commentary may be hard for a lot of people to receive coming from me. But I'm speaking from wisdom. I'm speaking from being a part of the community and seeing what's going on and being a part of that community that tries to redirect our youth and our young people into doing positive things with their lives. But there's not enough of people like me. There's far too many more of people who will take your child and put a gun in your child's hand and some dope in your child's hand and put them out on the street to cause harm in their community. When is that Willie Lynch mentality going to stop? We are in 2022. This is not 1839. The only massa we have is the one in our brain. The only massa we have is the one still living in our subconscious. This letter is called The Making of a Slave. It's not called A Slave Was Born. So anything made can be undone and remade. Let that soak in. If I get on my sewing machine and make me a plain dress, and I look at it and I say, nah, I don't want it like this. Let me embellish it some. Let me put me some ruffles, some lace, whatever. Make it look more dainty and acceptable for my class. I could do that. Anything learned can be unlearned. Anything made can be unmade and remade. It's time for us to change our mindset. And that's the bottom line. The only way the black community is going to flourish is if we go back to the days of old. Y'all have a great evening.